Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
What if the moment you stopped explaining yourself was the moment life started aligning? What if silence was not weakness, but your greatest strength? And what if the key to peace and power was already within you, waiting for you to turn inward? When you focus on yourself and embrace silence, distractions fade, clarity sharpens, and the noise of the world loses its grip. You stop chasing, and instead, the right things begin to arrive. Quiet becomes your power. Stillness becomes your strategy. Suddenly, without forcing, the pieces begin to fit. Not because you push them into place, but because you finally allow them to. In silence, you become steady. In solitude, you become unstoppable. Soon, you'll see how turning inward and staying silent unlocks power, peace, and alignment. You were never born to chase noise. Too much of life is spent reacting to voices telling you what to do, where to go, and what matters. But the truth is simple. You were not born to chase noise. You were born to create order from it. The man who spends his energy reacting never builds. He only runs. Yet when you listen to your own thoughts and the quiet voice within, you stop chasing and start creating. Why is this so powerful? Because the world will always have distractions. Gossip, criticism, applause, rejection. None of these can build your dreams. Silence, however, is the soil where ideas grow. When you clear away the noise, you uncover what truly matters. Not what others think should matter, but what speaks to your soul. You create quiet by cutting unnecessary speech, declining pointless conversations, and choosing solitude over shallow company. You sit with your own plans. You write them down, refine them in silence, and then you act. Picture this: two men in a factory. One spends his days talking about what he'll do someday. The other listens, studies the machines, and works quietly. After a year, who moves up? Not the talker, the doer. Now ask yourself, how much of your energy is wasted in empty conversations? What could you build if you stopped explaining yourself to those who don't share your vision? Stillness builds a strength noise can never give. When a man learns to be still, truly still, he begins to build real power. This strength is not loud. It doesn't flash. It gathers, like water pressing behind a dam, silent and unstoppable. Many mistake motion for progress, but not all movement goes forward. Too often, men spin their wheels, draining themselves while standing still. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be effective where you are. And that begins with stillness, thinking before acting, choosing before speaking. In silence, your thoughts sharpen into tools. In noise, they scatter like dust. To grow inner strength, you must sit quietly with your purpose. Review it every morning. Guard it carefully. Close the door. Protect your mind as a blacksmith shields his fire from the wind. Imagine a man who never skips his quiet time before work. He doesn't gossip. He doesn't argue. Others laugh at him for being too serious. But when opportunity arrives, he's the one prepared. Others wonder why, but you already know. Strength was built in silence. Do you guard your time as if it were sacred, or do you let the world steal it minute by minute? Remember this truth. What grows in stillness lasts. What grows in noise fades away. You must master your attention like a warrior guards his sword. There is no real progress without focus, and there is no real focus without silence. This is not theory, not a quote. It's a law. Just as gravity pulls you down, distractions pull you away from your purpose, your strength, and your future. Most men don't fail because of a lack of talent or opportunity. They fail because they have no focus. Their attention is scattered, their presence diluted. They are everywhere and nowhere at once. Your attention is not just a mental function. It is your most sacred possession. What you give your attention to, you give your life to. Where your focus flows, your energy follows. And where your energy goes, your future either grows or decays. Ask yourself, what are you giving your attention to? Gossip, endless news, trivial noise? Or are you creating meaning? Every time you let your mind be stolen by distractions, you hand away a piece of your power. Most men lose their potential not through one big mistake, but through 1,000 small leaks. Idle talk, shallow gatherings, pointless opinions. These are not harmless. They are thieves, and what they steal is priceless. A wise man knows this, so he becomes ruthless with his attention. He does not give it freely. He does not waste it on noise. He does not scatter it on scraps. He chooses what enters his mind the way a warrior chooses his battles, deliberately, decisively, defensively. Just as a swordsman sharpens his blade, you must sharpen your focus. Keep it clean, keep it protected, use it with intention. Treat it like a weapon. Because in a distracted world, attention is power. And when you focus on yourself, something remarkable happens. Your energy no longer leaks, it multiplies. Your mind grows lighter, ideas begin to flow, and time itself seems to expand. Small steps begin to feel significant. You see more clearly, feel more deeply, and move with intention. But when your attention is scattered, your strength fades. Not because you are weak, but because you are divided. Half your mind in the past, half in the future, with pieces lost in other people's drama or yesterday's mistakes. That division leaves you drained, unfocused, and ineffective. Think of the old craftsman in every town. He doesn't talk much, doesn't chase every event, doesn't jump into every trade. He sharpens one tool, one skill, one purpose, day after day, year after year. And in the end, when others burn out or fade away, he becomes the master everyone depends on. Why? Because he preserved his attention. He chose silence. And in that silence, greatness was built. The modern world fears silence. It fills every gap with noise, music in cars, ads in apps, opinions at every corner. We've been trained to fill each moment with something, anything. But a man of depth seeks the opposite. He carves out silence like it is gold, because it is. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of self. It is where focus sharpens, where willpower returns, where the future takes form. Ask yourself, are you treating your mind like a sword or like a rag? Do you move with precision or drift with distraction? Do you choose your thoughts or let them choose you? Every minute in silence is an investment. Every hour of focused work becomes a sharpening stone. Every choice to ignore the trivial is a declaration. My mind is mine, my future is mine, my power is mine. Control your attention, and you control your outcome. Let others chase noise, you chase clarity. Let others scatter, you stay steady. You sharpen while others drift. Let them lose themselves, you find yourself. Growth happens fastest when nobody is watching. Most men crave the appearance of victory. They want to be seen climbing the mountain, admired on the way up, photographed at the top. But very few are willing to climb in silence. Fewer still are willing to sweat in obscurity, to fall in secret and rise again without a witness. They hunger for recognition more than results, for praise more than progress. Yet all true greatness begins far from the crowd. The roots of anything powerful grow unseen, gripping deeper, preparing the tree to rise. No strong man becomes strong in front of the world. Strength is forged when no one is looking, when the room is empty, when there is no applause, no eyes to watch, no voices to cheer. That is where resilience is born. The man who rises in silence becomes unbreakable. He does not wait for validation, nor depend on applause. His drive is within. While others talk about their plans, he is already doing the work. While others post about their goals, he is mastering the grind. While others chase admiration, he seeks refinement. He knows the path to greatness is lonely, but that loneliness is sacred. It is the furnace where noise burns away and only truth remains. Why does this matter? Because the world rewards outcomes, not intentions. No one is celebrated for dreams spoken, only for dreams achieved. You can spend your life declaring how badly you want success, how serious your goals are. But unless you are working when no one is watching, it means nothing. When you stop trying to prove you're improving, you finally create the space to truly improve. Growth requires freedom, and you are most free when you are alone with your work. Free from the pressure to impress, free from comparisons, free from judgment. In this space, you can fail without shame and succeed without noise. Here, you can test, refine, and evolve without the demand for perfection. In silence, your mind sharpens, your identity strengthens, and your mission becomes clear. Picture the quiet apprentice. He doesn't speak of his ambitions or seek attention. He simply works in the back of the shop, unnoticed. Day after day, he hones his craft. He makes mistakes, fixes them, improves, and keeps going. While his peers chase approval, he chases excellence. And then one day, without ceremony, the old master steps aside. To everyone's surprise, the quiet apprentice rises to lead. Not because he asked for the role, but because he earned it. His preparation was invisible, his discipline unseen. Yet when the time came, his readiness was undeniable. This is how true power works. It doesn't shout. It doesn't advertise. It simply emerges. When the moment arrives, the man who grew in silence doesn't hesitate. He doesn't flinch. He steps forward, not with arrogance, but with calm certainty. Because he has done the work quietly, consistently, and completely. The question isn't whether you want success. Most people do. The real question is, are you willing to build your success in silence? Can you stay disciplined when no one notices? Can you keep showing up when there's no feedback, no likes, no eyes watching? Can you remain faithful to your mission when it feels like no one cares? Because if you can endure those lonely mornings, push through the empty nights, and refine your craft without applause, you won't just grow, you will rise. And when the world finally sees what you've become, it won't matter that they missed the process. You won't need their praise. You'll already be strong, already ready, already great. That is the reward of growing in silence. Not only success, but self-possession. Not only admiration, but undeniable mastery. This is not about being seen. It's about becoming unshakable. Silence guards the gate of your power. Strength isn't lost in a single mistake. It leaks slowly, almost invisibly, word by careless word, through meaningless conversations, empty chatter, nervous explanations. Every time you speak without purpose, you give away a piece of your power. The tragedy is, most never notice it. But the man who learns to hold his tongue begins to store his energy. Like water sealed in a jar, his strength remains contained. His silence is not weakness. It is conservation, preparation, and control. Silence is not emptiness. It is discipline. A man who governs his mouth governs his life. His thoughts stay sharp, his emotions steady. And when he finally speaks, his words strike like hammers. Clear, precise, undeniable. Yet this principle is one too often ignored. In a world obsessed with expression, the loudest man is often the weakest. The one who shouts the most is usually the one most afraid of being forgotten. But real strength does not seek noise. It radiates quietly, unmistakably. A powerful man listens far more than he speaks. He studies, he watches, he learns. He allows others to reveal themselves while he remains unread. He is not rushed to respond, not eager to impress, not afraid of silence. He knows true influence is born from restraint, not from performance, persuasion, or noise, but from presence. When you speak endlessly, you dilute your message. You expose doubts, insecurities, and distractions. You broadcast more than you build. But when you speak rarely, and only with intention, your words carry weight. People lean in. They listen, not because you shout, but because silence has made your voice rare. This is why old kings, battle-worn generals, and wise elders all shared one trait: measured speech. Not out of uncertainty, but because they understood every word has a cost, and every careless word weakens the speaker. They didn't talk to fill space, they spoke to shape it. Think of a commander on the battlefield. He walks without boasting, doesn't bark random orders. He surveys, he reads, his stillness alone signaling certainty. His silence commands. And when he does speak, it is not with volume, but with finality. A few words, a single order, and everything shifts. His authority comes not from what he says, but from what he withholds. That is the power of silence. It creates mystery, it breeds authority, it sharpens focus. People notice you not because you are loud, but because you are rare. They listen because you don't scatter words like loose change. You speak as if every syllable were measured in gold. This is why silence must be trained. It does not come naturally. Most men talk to ease their nerves, to prove their worth, to fill awkward gaps. But a man of depth learns to sit in silence as if it were a throne. He becomes comfortable with quiet, allowing reflection to replace reaction. He writes instead of blurting, thinks instead of rushing to reply. Through this restraint, he begins to rise. Ask yourself, are you guarding your power or giving it away day by day? How often have you weakened your position by over-explaining? How many victories have you lost by fighting arguments that didn't matter? How often have you traded peace for the petty thrill of being right? Hold your fire. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every challenge requires a counter. Silence can end battles before they begin, for nothing unsettles more than a man who refuses to be provoked. His calm becomes commanding, his quiet unshakable. The world may mock silence, but the wise use it. They don't rush to speak. They don't argue to win. They let results speak for them. And when their words finally come, they arrive like prophecy. In the end, strength lies not in the volume of your voice, but in the value of your silence. Guard it, train it, master it, because silence, when fully owned, makes you unstoppable. Your value rises when you become selective. A man who gives himself to everything eventually becomes nothing. His worth dissolves, not from lack of ability, but from lack of boundaries. He says yes to every request, attends every gathering, engages in every debate. In trying to be seen everywhere, he becomes invisible, familiar, predictable, easy to ignore. There is no weight in his presence because he is always present. No one pauses when he speaks because he never pauses to listen. You were not designed to be constantly accessible. You were not built to be a servant of every demand, a voice in every conversation, a body in every room. Your value increases when your presence is felt, not assumed. When you choose where to be instead of being pulled in every direction. The more you spread yourself, the thinner you become, until nothing remains. No impact, no gravity, no mystery. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It selects. A powerful man is deliberate. He observes carefully, acts with intention, and speaks rarely, but when he does, his words echo. His presence is scarce, yet when he enters the room, the energy shifts. Not because he demands respect, but because he earned it in the quiet hours no one witnessed. To live this way, you must withdraw from what drains you. This is not isolation, it is refinement. You begin to choose conversations with care, listen more than you speak, and hold back your opinions. Not out of fear of judgment, but because you know when to speak and when to let silence do the work. You stop explaining yourself to those unwilling to understand. You let your results be your defense, your silence your shield. The world will tempt you to always be available, offering applause for every post, every reaction, every moment you give away. But attention is not always a gift. Often, it is a trap. The man who strives to be constantly seen will be constantly judged, constantly pulled away from his center. What starts as a desire to be recognized ends in exhaustion. But something shifts when you step back. When you stop trying to be liked and start choosing to be real. When you value your own voice enough to preserve it. You stop filling the air with noise. You stop chasing meaningless approval and begin to walk with quiet clarity. You become intentional, and that alone makes you rare. There is power in restraint, in the man who speaks only when needed. Imagine a room full of noise, everyone talking, everyone pushing to be heard. He sits still, he watches, he waits, and when he finally speaks, the room falls silent. Not because of volume, but because of weight. He hasn't wasted himself, he has stored himself. His words now carry everything others lost in their noise. Ask yourself, how much of your strength is spent on things that don't serve your purpose? How often do you explain, defend, or perform for people who don't matter in the grand design of your life? How many times have you sacrificed your peace just to win arguments with no lasting gain? You were never meant to be everywhere. You were meant to be effective. To build yourself so deeply in silence that when you finally step forward, the world listens. Not because you demanded attention, but because your absence created it. Let your silence build your presence. Let your absence raise your value. Let your energy serve your vision, not your ego. You do not owe yourself to everyone. You owe yourself to your purpose. So step back. Watch what happens. They may hear from you less often, but when they do, they will feel it. Silence builds reputation, while careless words destroy it. Reputation is never built in your presence. It is shaped in your absence. Not by what you say, but by what others say when you are no longer in the room. Your image is not crafted by declarations, but by the quiet strength of your discipline, the echo of your results, and the consistency of your conduct over time. The more you talk, the more fragile your image becomes. Talk too much, and your strength dissolves. Justify too much, and people sense insecurity. Promise too much, and every unkept word erodes your credibility. In contrast, the man who speaks little but does much leaves an unmistakable mark. He does not build his name through persuasion, but through performance. His silence is not emptiness, it is strategy. It creates space for curiosity, mystery, and above all, credibility. In a world drowning in noise, his quiet focus sets him apart. While others broadcast their ambitions, he fulfills his. While others boast of what they will do, he becomes the man who already did it, without needing to say a word. Silence is not avoidance, it is a message. It tells the world, watch my work. It tells his peers, I am too busy becoming who I said I'd be to waste time explaining myself. The man who improves in private cannot be ignored in public, because what he builds in the dark becomes undeniable in the light. That is how legends are made, not through announcements or endless self-promotion, but through consistency, through quiet hours, unseen effort, and relentless pursuit of mastery. There is danger in too many words. Each unnecessary explanation invites misunderstanding. Every overeager promise increases the chance of falling short. Every attempt to impress hands others the tools to doubt you, to compete with you, to twist your intentions. But when you remain grounded, composed, and reserved, you leave no cracks to exploit. Your image becomes solid, not flawless, but strong. Because it is built not on appearances, but on truth. The way to build your name is not by shaping the opinions of others, but by shaping yourself. Build your name through what you deliver, through how you show up when no one asks, through the standards you hold when no one is watching. Say less, promise less, but when you do speak, mean every word. And when you act, deliver beyond expectation. Let people wonder how you did it, not because you told them, but because you never needed to. Picture a respected merchant in a small town. He doesn't parade his success, boast of profits, or drop hints of influence. He doesn't need to. Everyone already knows. They see it in his conduct, in how he treats others, in the quality of his work. When guidance is needed, they turn to him. When reliability is required, they think of him. Why? Not because of what he says, but because of how he lives. His reputation is his shadow, present even in his absence. Now ask yourself, are your words building your name or quietly eroding it? Do you speak with purpose or out of habit? Do your promises command respect, or are they ignored after being spoken too often? If you said less, would your actions speak louder? Every word you choose not to say gives more weight to the ones you eventually do. Every boast you resist makes your results stronger. Every time you let your work speak, you multiply your influence. Silence, when joined with substance, is louder than any noise. In the end, no man is remembered for what he said he would do, only for what he actually did, especially when no one was watching. So let your silence hold weight. Let your presence speak as its own statement. Build your name brick by brick through effort, integrity, and restraint. Be silent. Be powerful. Be remembered. Your greatest work is always done in private. Even the grandest cathedrals were not built under bright lights or the cheers of a crowd. They were built brick by brick. Patiently, quietly, over years, even decades, by craftsmen whose names were never known. No applause, no interviews, only dedication and work. Yet those cathedrals still stand, admired for their beauty, precision, and greatness. And the truth behind them is always the same. They were built in silence. Your best work, too, will never be done in front of a crowd. It won't happen on a stage or under the spotlight. It happens alone, in the early hours before the world wakes. In the quiet of night, when others rest and doubts begin to whisper, that's when the real work begins. Progress is invisible, but transformation is taking place. Greatness is not born in public, it is earned in private. In the small, consistent choices. In the repetitions that feel mundane. In the effort that goes unnoticed. But too many wait for permission. They wait for recognition before they begin. They crave the audience before they've developed the performance. They want the title before they've earned the skill. But that is not how excellence works. That is not how mastery is built. The world will not hand you greatness. It only responds to the greatness you've built when no one was looking. And when you truly focus on yourself, when you block out the noise, ignore distractions, and stop chasing validation, your work becomes sacred. You begin to treat your craft like it truly matters. You stop rushing. You start listening. You slow down, not to delay progress, but to deepen it. In that sacred space, you make mistakes without shame. You fix them without an audience. You fail repeatedly, without applause or sympathy. And every time you fall and rise again, something unshakable is being built inside you. The hands of time don't measure it, but the depth of your character will. And when the moment comes, when the world finally sees what you've created, it will look like sudden brilliance to them. But to you, it's just another step. You've already moved beyond it. You were never doing it for their approval. You were doing it for something greater, for mastery, for truth, for yourself. So how do you enter that place of silent progress? You stop craving recognition. You let go of the urge to be seen. You release the shallow satisfaction of quick praise. You stop building to impress and start building to improve. Your workshop becomes your temple, a sacred space where distractions are unwelcome and where silence is not emptiness but companionship. Picture a young man at a piano. No concert, no audience, only the dim light of evening and the steady sound of keys beneath his fingers. Day after day, he returns, not for others, but because something inside demands more. He plays a note, then again, adjusting his hands, refining his rhythm. Slowly, his skill deepens. And one day, without warning, he is asked to perform before a crowd. He steps onto the stage, sits at the piano. The crowd is moved. They think it's talent. But you know the truth. It was the silent hours that built him. Excellence has no shortcuts, no loud announcements. It doesn't rush, and it doesn't beg for applause. It grows where no one sees, born in the grind, the solitude, the relentless pursuit of better. So ask yourself, are you willing to create in secret? Are you willing to show up when no one is clapping? Are you prepared to sacrifice recognition today for mastery tomorrow? Because if you only build when others are watching, you'll never create what truly lasts. But if you commit to the silent work, the hidden grind, the unnoticed repetitions, then one day, your results will speak for you. Real excellence is quiet, loud in impact, clear in results, unforgettable in presence. While the world shouts, you remain silent and build. Focus turns chaos into clarity. Today, countless men stay busy but never effective. They sprint from one commitment to the next, always in motion, yet never in control. Their minds are scattered, always reacting, always adjusting, forever switching lanes. The problem isn't that life is too demanding. It's that their focus is too diluted. Their energy is divided among meaningless tasks, and because of that, nothing lasting is ever built. A man who learns to concentrate his mind becomes a weapon. He cuts through the world's noise with precision. He moves differently. He sees what others miss because he isn't looking everywhere. He's looking deep. He doesn't rush from one thing to the next. He finishes where others get distracted. He digs in where others burn out. He finds flow. This isn't magic, it's mastery. And mastery begins with focus. You don't need more time, more advice, more hacks. What you need is to stop scattering yourself. The moment you give your full attention to a single task, whether cleaning a room or launching a business, you begin generating momentum. Your energy gathers instead of leaking. Your mind aligns with your hand. You find rhythm. You enter the silence where real progress is born. But when you divide your attention, bounce between tasks, check every message, and get pulled by every noise, you stay stuck. Not because you lack intelligence, not because you lack ability, but because you never give enough of yourself to break through. You start, you pause, you talk, you forget. You start again, and days slip by, weeks pass, progress fades. Not because you didn't try, but because you didn't focus. There is quiet power in choosing one mission each day, one thing to complete fully, deeply, without compromise. You wake with intention. You don't ask what you feel like doing. You decide what must be done. Then you strip away everything else and guard your time like it is sacred. You treat distractions like enemies. You work, not for applause, not for recognition, but for the integrity of your craft. You build the habit of full presence, and through that presence, you build power. Picture a writer. Not famous, not yet known by the world, alone in a small room. No phone, no internet, no noise. Just him, a pen, and a story to tell. Every morning, he sits down. Every day he writes, not in scattered effort, but in hours of undisturbed focus. And in a single week, he finishes what others couldn't complete in a year. Not because he worked faster, but because he worked deeper. His focus became his fuel. His silence became his sanctuary. And in that silence, he created something real. Now turn inward. How many hours do you lose each week trying to do 10 things at once? Drafting emails while thinking of meetings, starting one task, then jumping to another, never fully finishing anything. You tell yourself it's multitasking, but what you're really doing is splitting yourself into pieces. So ask yourself, how far could you go? How much could you achieve if you mastered one thing at a time? The answer isn't to do more. It's to cut more. Cut the noise. Cut the habits that steal your focus. Cut the need to respond to every message, every call, every tug on your attention. Your mind is a limited resource. Protect it, sharpen it, direct it. Clarity begins with focus, and focus begins with silence. The world will always shout. People will always demand. But greatness will never be found in the noise. It is found in the quiet place where you commit. Fully, deeply, without distraction, to the one thing that matters most. That is where winners are made. Not in motion, but in focus. Your silence makes room for wisdom. The wisest men are rarely the ones who speak the most. True wisdom is often found in the man who waits, who listens, who watches, not in the one eager to prove how much he knows. While others rush to fill the air with words, he absorbs. While others scramble to be heard, he quietly observes. The wisdom that could have guided them, they miss. He does not chase the spotlight because he understands real power isn't in being seen or heard. It's in seeing and hearing what others overlook. Silence is not emptiness. It is a vessel. In your silence, you create space. Space for insight, for understanding, for clarity. You open room for the deeper truths life whispers beneath the chaos. The man who constantly speaks leaves no space to receive. He is too busy performing to truly perceive. But the man who embraces quiet begins to hear what others miss. The unspoken tensions in a conversation, the hidden motives behind words, the lessons tucked into ordinary moments. Too many speak before they know, declare before they understand, interrupt not only others, but their own growth. And in doing so, they pass blindly by the signs. They miss the meaning. But you, if you choose silence over noise, presence over performance, you begin to see beneath the surface. You start to notice patterns others overlook, to recognize the signals in people's behavior, the quiet truths and their contradictions. The real meaning lies in the messages between the words. This kind of listening is not passive. It is active, powerful, and developed slowly with patience. You stop rushing to offer your opinion. You learn to hold it back. You begin asking better questions, watching how people act when they don't know they're being observed. You study situations without trying to control them. You let things unfold. And when the time comes to speak or act, you do it not from impulse, but from understanding. Think of the old farmer at the edge of the village. He sits quietly in meetings. He doesn't argue. He doesn't chase status. While others talk over each other, desperate to sound clever, he simply listens. But when he finally speaks, the room falls silent. Not because he is loud, but because he is rare. His words carry weight, not through volume, but through precision. That kind of authority isn't claimed. It is earned. Earned through years of attention, through a lifetime of listening, through the discipline of silence. You may not be the oldest in the room. You may not be the most experienced, but you can still become the one people turn to, not by dominating conversations, but by elevating them when you finally choose to speak. It begins with restraint, letting go of the urge to always be heard, realizing that silence can hold more power than speech. Ask yourself, are you leaving room for wisdom, or are you filling every space with your voice? Do you allow reflection before response? Do you seek to understand more than to express? Because if your words are constant, they eventually lose weight. But if your words are rare, born from thought and deep listening, they land with force. Wisdom does not shout. It doesn't race to speak first. It waits, it watches, it listens. It reveals itself only to those willing to pause long enough to receive it. And if you can learn to hold that pause, to dwell in it, to respect it, you'll begin to feel a shift. Your thoughts grow deeper, your insights sharper, your decisions more effective. You no longer just react, you respond with knowledge, with clarity, with calm. In a world drowning in noise, the man who listens becomes rare. The one who observes becomes powerful. And the one who speaks only when it matters becomes unforgettable. Let that be you, not the loudest, but the wisest. Speak only when it moves the mission forward. A man's words are never neutral. They are either tools that carve a path ahead or traps that quietly lead him astray. Each time you open your mouth, you are making a choice. You are either reinforcing your purpose or weakening it, pressing deeper into your mission or drifting further away. And most men, without realizing it, waste their strength not in action, but in speech, pouring energy into explanations, justifications, and arguments that bear no fruit. But if you want to be different, if you want to be effective, you must train yourself to speak with intention. The world is already flooded with noise. Every room is filled with voices fighting to be heard. Every platform echoes with endless posting and shouting. Yet noise is not power, precision is. Real influence comes from saying only what matters. And to do that, you must make silence your foundation, not your weakness. Become the man who doesn't speak to be heard, but speaks because it is necessary. When you hold your voice in reserve, something powerful happens. People notice, not just your silence, but the meaning behind it. You develop a presence that doesn't rely on volume. Others listen, not because you demand it, but because your restraint has earned their attention. You become the man whose words carry weight, because you never waste them. And in a world where everyone fights to be noticed, you become remembered. To begin this shift, you must build an internal filter. Before you speak, pause and ask, does this help? Does it move the mission forward? Or am I just filling the air? You'll be surprised how often the tongue moves from habit, not purpose. But habits can be reformed. Discipline begins with awareness, and power begins with eliminating the useless, the reactive, the emotional. When you cut away unnecessary commentary, something stronger takes its place: clarity. You stop talking about what you plan to do and start doing it. You stop explaining your choices to those who don't need to understand them. You stop defending your vision to those never meant to see it. You let your results speak for you. You let silence do the heavy lifting until your actions carry the weight. Picture a boardroom filled with heated debate. Dozens of voices clash, each one eager to prove a point, when an argument impressed the room. In the center sits one man, calm, still, quiet. He listens, observes, and when the moment is right, he speaks. Just a few sentences, measured, clear, focused, and suddenly the conversation pivots. The air shifts. He hasn't raised his voice. He hasn't overpowered anyone. Yet he redirects the entire room with the force of precision. That is the power of restrained speech. That is the strength of speaking only when it matters. Now step back and examine your own words. Are they moving your life forward or keeping it in place? How often do you explain things that don't need explanation? How many times have you tried to prove yourself with words that should have been left unspoken? What would change if every time you opened your mouth, it was a command, not a complaint? What would shift if your words were no longer reactions, but instruments of purpose? When your words serve your mission, your conversations gain sharpness. Your days become more intentional. Your reputation grows stronger. You stop speaking to fill time and start speaking to set direction. That shift will be felt by everyone around you. You won't need to raise your voice or repeat yourself. You'll be heard because you chose to speak with meaning. Speak less, say more. Let silence sharpen your message. Let your mission guide your mouth. In the end, the man who commands attention isn't the one who says the most, but the one whose words are disciplined, backed by action, and aligned with purpose. Most people talk about plans. You execute them. The crowd always has something to say. You'll hear them at every table, in every room, repeating the same lines. One day I'll do this, someday I'll start that. Their words sound noble. Their intentions seem grand. But nothing changes. Years pass, and their lives remain the same. They stay trapped in the cycle of talking, dreaming out loud, but never building anything real. They confuse discussion with execution, and in doing so, rob themselves of the very progress they speak of so often. But you must take a different path. You must become the one who lets actions reveal intentions. While others chase attention with loud declarations, you retreat into discipline. While they plan out loud, you build in silence. This is the way of the builder: quiet, steady, relentless, and committed. The builder doesn't speak to impress. He works to create. His mind is trained not to declare, but to begin. Not to broadcast, but to deliver. Not to wish, but to complete. Talk is cheap. Execution is rare. The world has more dreamers than doers, more speeches than systems, more noise than results. But when you choose silence, when you choose movement over words, you train your mind differently. You become focused, grounded, immune to the praise or doubt of others. You act not for applause, but because something inside demands you finish what you start. Why is this so important? Because every plan loses power the moment it's spoken too soon. When you share a goal before momentum is built, you weaken it. You invite distractions. You welcome skepticism. You give others the power to question or derail you before your foundation is even laid. Words can scatter your energy, but silence preserves it. Silence keeps the spark alive until it becomes a flame. Keep your plans close, your private blueprints, guarded not by secrecy, but by intention. Let your discipline protect them. Share them through action, not announcement. Make your goals your silent project. Let your calendar, not your conversations, reveal your progress. Each time you're tempted to declare, choose instead to record. Track completions, not conversations. Measure steps taken, not stories told. Replace public intention with private execution. Picture a man who rises before dawn. While others sleep, he works. While others dream out loud, he takes quiet, deliberate steps toward his vision. He doesn't explain what he's doing. He's too focused on doing it. And one day, he enters a room and people notice something has changed. They ask, how did he do it? But they never saw the early mornings, the lonely hours, the silent decisions made again and again. All they see is the result, because he built in silence and revealed only when it was done. Ask yourself, how many words are standing between you and your results? How many promises have you made that never became action? How much time have you spent explaining yourself when you could have been executing? This isn't about hiding. It's about mastering your focus. It's about learning that the loudest path is rarely the most productive one. It's about choosing to build first and speak later. There is weight in those who act quietly, a power that cannot be ignored. Because when results arrive, they speak louder than any promise ever could. So be quiet. Be consistent. Wake up, do the work, track it, refine it. Keep your head down long enough for your hands to shape something real. And when the time comes, when what you've built is ready to be seen, it will not need explanation. It will speak for itself. You don't owe the world an outline. You owe it a finished product. Build, then reveal. Let silence carry you forward. Let the work do the talking. Let your success arrive not with a speech, but with proof. Silence protects your energy from small minds. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not every voice around you is meant to hear your vision. Some will mock it. Some will belittle it. Some will pretend to support you while secretly hoping you fail. And the most dangerous of all are those who seem interested but quietly plant seeds of doubt behind your back. That's why silence is not just a virtue, it is a shield. A wall between your dreams and the noise of small minds. In a world of endless commentary, silence is how you protect what's still growing. Your ideas, especially in their early stages, are like seeds in delicate soil. Expose them too soon, and they become vulnerable to cold winds, judgment, ridicule, distraction, and misunderstanding. When you speak your goals before they've taken root, you invite the world to trample them. Not always out of malice, but out of limitation. Most people cannot see beyond their own boundaries. So when you share your ambition, they measure it against their fears. They interpret your desire through the lens of their failures. Without even realizing it, they try to pull you back into their comfort zone. Because your growth exposes their stagnation. But when you stay quiet, focused inward, grounded in your own direction, you keep your power. You create space where your energy isn't diluted by opinions, where your vision matures undisturbed. You don't need the world to understand your dream. You need yourself to stay committed to it. Shielding your energy begins with one simple shift. Stop seeking approval. You don't need the nod of others to validate your journey. What you need is conviction, discipline, and relentless execution. Approval is a fleeting currency. It arrives when you succeed, disappears when you struggle. Build your foundation without it. Let your internal standards rise higher than any praise the world can offer. Then, learn to become hard to read, not out of secrecy, but out of strength. Let others wonder what you're building. Let them speculate while you refine. Keep your presence steady and your words scarce. You are not obligated to update anyone on your progress. Silence does not mean inactivity. It is the mark of someone deeply engaged in something important. Picture the inventor alone in his garage. Year after year, he works quietly, failing, adjusting, improving. Neighbors whisper, friends question, some laugh behind his back. But he says nothing. He just builds. And one day, he opens the doors to reveal a machine that changes everything. Those who once mocked him now ask how he did it. But the answer was always in the silence. Silence gave him space. Silence gave him protection. Silence gave him power. Now turn the mirror on yourself. How much energy have you wasted trying to explain your vision to people who never cared to understand it? How much momentum have you sacrificed chasing approval from those too afraid to pursue their own dreams? Every moment spent explaining is a moment stolen from executing. Every word spent defending is a word taken from building. So what would happen if you stopped explaining and started expanding? What if instead of seeking understanding, you pursued mastery? What if, instead of broadcasting your intentions, you refined your actions? Your silence wouldn't be hiding, it would be guarding. Not retreat, but reinforcement. The world doesn't need to see you in process. Let it see you in completion. Be silent, not from fear, but from focus. Let your growth remain private until your results speak for you. Let your future unfold without needing prediction. Let your rise be so steady, so undeniable, that when the world finally notices, it's too late to stop you. You own no one your blueprint. You owe yourself the duty to protect your vision from premature exposure, to guard your mind like sacred ground, to keep your fire burning beneath still waters. Let them talk. Let them wonder. You build, and let your future do the speaking. You are stronger without their applause. The need for applause is a quiet poison. It creeps in slowly, disguised as motivation, wrapped in encouragement. At first, it feels harmless, even helpful. A few kind words, a nod of approval, and you feel inspired to continue. But over time, something shifts. You stop shaping your life around what matters and start shaping it around what gets noticed. You adjust your rhythm to the crowd's applause, and soon you're no longer working for your purpose. You're performing for their praise. This is how greatness gets diluted, not through failure, but through distraction. Applause becomes a drug, and progress turns into a side effect rather than the goal. But the man who breaks free from this addiction, the one who chooses the path of quiet discipline, becomes something rare and unshakable. Because applause always fades. It's loud one day, silent the next. It lifts you when you win, but disappears the moment you struggle. The world has a short memory and an even shorter attention span. If you build your foundation on their cheers, you will always depend on them to stand tall. But progress remains. No one can take it from you. It doesn't require permission or approval. It is built in solitude, brick by brick, and it stands whether or not a crowd ever notices. The strongest man is not the one cheered by thousands, but the one who keeps moving forward when no one is watching. The man who rises early, trains in silence, studies without recognition, and finishes without fanfare. His motivation doesn't come from applause, it comes from purpose. And because of that, he never needs an audience to keep going. This is rare, because most men need to be seen to feel valuable. They wait for a pat on the back, a good job, some acknowledgement. And if it doesn't come, they hesitate. They lose steam, question their effort, and stall. But the master? He doesn't wait. He doesn't need the spotlight to validate his grind. He knows that progress made in the shadows is what prepares him for the day he must stand in the light. To become this kind of man, you must learn to be alone, not lonely. You must learn to sit with your work without feeling the need to update the world. Let your progress be your proof. Train your hands to build while your mouth remains closed. Speak through results, announce through transformation. Let others discover your growth, not because you declared it, but because you became it. Picture a boxer training in silence. The gym is quiet, the air heavy with sweat and repetition. No cameras, no fans, no interviews, just the sound of fists against bags, the rhythm of breath, the strain of muscle. He trains day after day, not for applause, but for war. And when fight day comes, he enters the ring without fear. His opponent trained for attention. He trained for readiness. That is the power of silent effort. That is what separates the loud from the legendary. Anyone can chase applause. Few can endure silence. But silence is where character is forged, where vision is tested, where grit is formed. Now ask yourself, what truly drives you? Is it the mission? Or the noise? What happens to your momentum when no one notices your effort? Do you keep going? Or do you pause, waiting to be seen before moving again? You must train your spirit to thrive in silence. You must feed your ambition with discipline, not attention. Let go of the belief that your effort only matters if someone applauds it. Applause is optional, but progress is not. The work must be done, with or without witnesses. The mountain must be climbed, with or without cheers. The mission must be fulfilled, especially in silence. Let your drive be internal. Let your reward be mastery. And when the world finally sees what you've become, let them wonder how you did it unseen. The answer? You were stronger without applause. What you don't say reveals who you are. The world watches your silence more closely than your speech. In a culture addicted to opinions and noise, silence stands out. It commands attention not by shouting, but by refusing to. Each time you choose not to respond, not to react, not to reveal, you show your depth, your control, your discipline, your clarity. These qualities are not proven in the words you broadcast, but in the restraint you master. There's a myth that strength must always be loud, that it must argue, defend, or declare itself. But true strength walks quietly. It enters a room with calm eyes and steady presence. It speaks only when the moment requires, and even then, with precision. This strength doesn't need to overpower anyone. It doesn't rise to every challenge or chase every argument. It listens longer than it talks. It observes. And when it acts, it does so with clarity born not of impulse, but of thought. Why does this matter? Because restraint is not weakness, it is mastery. The world is full of men who can shout, but rare is the man who can wait. The man who can absorb insult without letting it rule his mood. The man who can hear lies, slander, even foolishness, and remain still. That man commands a respect noise can never earn. Your character is not shaped by how loudly you defend yourself, but by what you choose not to defend. When you hold your peace in the face of provocation, you send a clear message: I am not controlled by you. In that restraint, you reveal not weakness, but sovereignty. You show that you live on your terms, not theirs. Real power comes not from reaction, but from restraint. The less you reveal, the more you control. And the more control you have, the more others respect your presence. People sense something different in a man who doesn't rush to explain, who doesn't collapse into emotional outbursts. They may never say it, but they feel it. Your silence becomes a signal, a quiet force, a presence that speaks even when you don't. To build this kind of power, you must be intentional. Make silence a deliberate habit, not just a passive response. When emotions rise, when tension builds, pause and ask yourself before every word: is this necessary? Is this strategic? Or is it just my ego speaking? The ego always wants to talk, to be right, to win the room. But the wise man knows, winning is not in the words. It's in the outcome. If silence brings peace, clarity, and strength, then silence wins. Picture a man insulted in public. The room holds its breath, waiting for a reaction. People expect him to strike back with sharper words, to defend himself. But he doesn't. He simply smiles, nods, and walks away. No rebuttal, no escalation, just composure. And in that moment, the insult is forgotten, but his silence is remembered. Because it didn't come from fear, it came from fortitude. This is the kind of strength you must cultivate, the kind that doesn't chase reputation, it earns it. True strength doesn't rise to every provocation, it transcends it. Your power isn't proven by how much you can say, but by how much you can choose not to. So reflect. What do your silences say about you? Are they born from composure or insecurity? Do you hold back because you don't know what to say, or because you know exactly what not to say? Silence can hide weakness, but it can also radiate wisdom. The difference lies in your intention. Train yourself to speak less, not out of fear, but out of focus. Master the discipline of holding back. Use your silence as a tool of clarity, not confusion. Let others wander, let them talk. You stay grounded, because the man who controls his voice controls his life. And the man who controls his silence? He controls the room. What you don't say speaks louder than anything you ever could. The man who controls himself controls the outcome. And everything begins with control, not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that disciplines yourself. Your words, your emotions, your movements. This is the foundation of real power. not the appearance of strength, but the possession of it. The man who can sit in silence while others complain, who keeps his hands steady when others panic, who remains still while others scramble. He becomes the one others trust, the one they follow. Power doesn't come from overpowering. It comes from composure. Most men lose their strength not because someone defeated them, but because they gave it away. With every outburst, every impulsive reaction, every moment of emotional leakage, they trade peace for the thrill of a response. And in that moment, they lose control, not just of the situation, but of themselves. You see it everywhere. A word spoken in haste ruins a relationship. A small offense grows into a battle of egos. A rumor sparks rage, and suddenly a man is no longer leading his life. He's being led by it. The root of that chaos is always the same: lack of self-restraint. It's not the world that breaks him. It's his inability to remain calm within it. But when you turn your focus inward, something shifts. When you stop reacting and start observing, you step into a different kind of authority, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that lets the storm rage while you remain steady at the center. So how do you become that man? You practice. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. Start with the small irritations, the delayed message, the careless comment, the pointless argument. Instead of reacting, you breathe. You sit with the discomfort. You resist the urge to speak just to release tension. You choose silence. You let the emotion rise and fall without clinging to it. That is how control is built, through intention, not impulse. And when bigger tests come, as they always do, you are no longer ruled by reaction. You become the anchor others depend on. Picture a leader in the middle of a crisis. The room is tense, faces filled with fear, everyone's searching for direction. All eyes turn to him. He doesn't flinch, he doesn't bark orders. He listens, he observes, he takes a moment. Then, with a few calm words, he restores order. Not because the storm ended, but because he never let the storm enter him. This kind of presence cannot be faked, it must be forged. In silence, in solitude, in the small choices made when no one is watching. When you master yourself, you stop chasing outcomes. You begin shaping them. You're no longer a man reacting to life. You become the man directing it. Now ask yourself, how often have you lost peace by reacting too quickly? How many moments have you regretted because you spoke too soon, moved too fast, or let anger lead? And how much more power could you hold? How much more clarity could you keep if you simply stayed still? Control is not a gift. It is a skill. It isn't natural. It is built in the furnace of patience and tested in the fire of pressure. And once you gain it, truly gain it, you will never want to give it away. Because the man who controls himself controls everything. That is when you rise. When you stop explaining, you confront the moment every driven man must face. There comes a moment when a man realizes that trying to explain his path to those who don't share his vision is not just exhausting, but destructive. It's like handing your blueprints to someone who knows nothing about architecture, then standing by while they poke holes in your design. Each time you justify your direction to people who were never meant to follow it, you step off your own road. You give away your edge. Worse, you shift focus from building to defending. But you weren't born to explain. You were born to create. Not everyone will see what you see, and that's exactly how it should be. Vision, by its nature, is personal, sometimes painfully so. When you try to translate it to small minds, to distracted ears, to those who fear the very change you're chasing, you weaken it. You burn your fire keeping others warm instead of forging ahead. You answer questions that only exist to slow you down. You waste hours clarifying what only time and proof can ever make clear. Explanations weaken your position. They drain your energy from doing into defending. And when you're defending, you're no longer building. You become trapped in a performance loop, hoping words will win respect. But here's the truth. If someone needs an explanation to value your effort, they were never going to respect your results. Let that settle. The man who rises higher almost always does so quietly. He builds in silence. He learns in silence. He endures setbacks in silence. And when the time comes, when the project is complete, the discipline sharpened, and the foundation firm, he doesn't present with noise. He presents with results. He doesn't need to argue. The outcome speaks louder than words ever could. That is the power of moving without announcing, of saving your energy for the work instead of wasting it on explanations. Not everyone will understand, and not everyone should. That isn't weakness in your vision. It's proof you're on a path uniquely your own. Those meant to see it will in time. Those who don't can stay with their doubts while you stay with your mission. Think of the young craftsman, mocked and doubted, not because he was wrong, but because he was early. He stopped inviting people into his process, stopped offering updates. He shut the door, focused, and worked. And one day, he unveiled what he had built, not with a speech, but with proof. Suddenly, no one had questions. They only had respect, not because he convinced them, but because he no longer needed to. So ask yourself, who are you still explaining to? Whose doubts echo in your mind long after the words were spoken? Who are you secretly performing for, hoping they'll finally understand? You don't owe the world explanations. You owe yourself evolution. Your duty is not to be understood, but to become. Walk your path so fully that others either join you or get left behind. Speak less, build more. And when the time comes, let your results answer the questions they once asked. Because silence isn't avoidance, it's protection. It's the choice to preserve your momentum instead of draining it. And when the dust settles, when your work stands undeniable, your silence will have already spoken louder than any defense could. It is discipline in silence that sets you apart. While others chase motivation like a gust of wind, you must pursue something far more reliable: consistency. The man who moves in silence doesn't win because he works harder once in a while, but because he shows up every single day. No applause, no praise, no permission needed. He continues, not because of fleeting feelings, but because of the man he's committed to becoming. That's the quiet line between those remembered and those forgotten. Most people wait to feel inspired, to find the perfect moment, the right mood, the ideal circumstance. But time doesn't wait. Life doesn't wait. So why should you? Discipline doesn't shout its worth. It whispers in early mornings, hums in repeated tasks, sighs through quiet evenings filled with unrewarded effort. Yet it is this invisible rhythm that carves the path to greatness. You don't become different by doing what everyone else does. You become different by doing what they avoid, by enduring what they complain about, repeating what they abandon, staying when they quit, showing up when it's hard, and finishing when it's no longer exciting. You keep your word, not just to others, but above all, to yourself. You guard your time like sacred ground. You say no to distraction, no to convenience, no to the easy way out, and yes to the repetitive, demanding habits that forge real strength. Picture the mason. Each day he lifts the same brick, sets it with care, then does it again. Neighbors laugh, asking with a smirk if he's still laying bricks. He nods, never explaining, never justifying, only building. Years pass. While others chase shortcuts and abandon unfinished foundations, his wall rises. One day, the castle stands, unshakable, undeniable. The laughter fades, replaced by awe. But the mason never needed their praise. The work was always between him and the stone. The same is true for you. Your real work is not about being noticed, it's about being devoted. If you can embrace the rhythm of discipline, if you can keep moving when tired, when uninspired, you will build what no one else can. So ask yourself, what could you create if you stopped chasing novelty and chose discipline instead? How would your life change if you stopped starting over and simply continued? What strength could you develop not by doing something new, but by doing something consistently? In the end, it is your habits, not your hopes, that shape your legacy. And the strongest habits are always born in silence. They are built in solitude, proven not by noise, but by results. Let others chase excitement. You chase execution. Let them search for shortcuts. You keep laying bricks. Let them beg for applause. You earn your crown. Discipline is not worn on your sleeve, but carried deep in your soul. It is your private crown, worn daily, especially when no one is watching, because that's when it matters most. Silence shields you from drama. The world thrives on conflict, arguments, and endless noise that drains energy and purpose. Men shout over things they don't even believe in, pride clashing with pride, egos swelling until they burst. In all this chaos, volume is mistaken for strength. But real strength isn't found in winning arguments. It's found in winning at life. And to win, you must rise above the noise, untouchable in the face of petty conflict. You were not born to answer every insult or chase every rumor. The moment you let yourself get dragged into every tug of war, you lose. not from being wrong, but from being distracted. And distraction is the thief of excellence. Every time you react to something small, you give away a piece of your edge. Every time you respond to gossip, you fuel it. But when you stay silent, the drama starves. It dissolves, leaving your critics confused and your focus protected. This isn't about cowardice, it's about clarity. It's knowing which battles are worth fighting and which only exist to drag you off course. You build immunity to drama by refusing to step into every ring. You don't answer every comment. You don't dive into every conflict. You stay grounded, centered, committed to your mission while others spin in circles trying to provoke you. Picture a man walking through town. Rumors swirl, accusations fly, whispers chase him at every step. People wait for him to break, to lash out, but he doesn't. He keeps walking, keeps working, keeps improving. He never lowers himself to the noise. And in time, the whispers fade, the voices die out. The same doubters who once mocked him now respect him, not because he shouted louder, but because he refused to play their game. He chose purpose over pride, and that choice made him untouchable. So ask yourself, how much time are you wasting on battles that don't matter? How much energy drains away in arguments that never move you closer to your goals? What could you gain if you let results speak instead of your ego? If your progress silenced your critics? The man who rises does so by decision, not chance. He decides not to engage. He decides not to react. He chooses his future over fleeting feelings, his mission over his ego. And in that choice, his silence becomes armor. Armor against distraction, armor against petty men with loud voices and small minds. Let others chase drama. You chase discipline. Let them react, while you respond only when needed, never from impulse. When others fall apart, you hold steady, because silence, reinforced by relentless action, becomes the strongest answer of all. Not because it shouts, but because it endures. In the end, nothing stands taller than the man who stays focused, unshaken, and unwilling to descend into noise. Be above it. Be quiet. Be sharp. Let your work finish every conversation your words never began. Let silence be your armor and victory your voice. Stillness creates the future you deserve, the life you've longed for. It won't arrive by accident, won't knock on your door, or fall into your lap. It will be built, not in chaos or applause, but in silence, solitude, and steady, deliberate effort. The life you seek is born from stillness. But remember, stillness is not the absence of movement. It is focused movement. It isn't laziness, waiting, or standing still. It's the choice to act with intention, to move with clarity, to strip away noise so your direction can be heard. It's the difference between the man who drifts and the man who builds. Every man who rises must first withdraw, long enough to hear his own thoughts. He must learn the strength of solitude, not as isolation, but as refinement. The loudest voices will always pull at you, offering advice, demanding answers, pressing urgency. But destiny isn't shaped by noise, it's designed in silence. The man who succeeds is the one who builds in the dark before walking into the light. He sits quietly with himself, asking the hardest questions. What do I truly want? What am I willing to give up to get there? What must I change in myself to rise? These questions cannot be answered in crowds. They demand space, stillness, and honesty. And once the answers come, the work begins, not loudly or publicly, but with discipline. Day after day, hour after hour, carving a future out of raw stone. You are not here to drift, reacting to every event, opinion, or demand. You are here to plant with purpose, water with patience, and harvest with faith. Each day is a brick. Each decision, a tool. Each habit, a layer in the foundation of the life you are building. Without intention, time erodes. With intention, time becomes your builder. So guard your schedule like your life depends on it, because it does. Choose companions wisely, for the wrong company can uproot everything you've planted. Speak only words that build, because gossip, complaints, and empty opinions weaken the very structure you're raising. And when you work, let it be on things that move you forward. Busyness is not progress. Noise is not momentum. Only focused labor builds legacy. Picture a captain at his desk before dawn. The world is asleep, the sea outside dark and waiting. He studies the map, charts the course, and makes silent decisions that will guide his crew through storms. No one sees this moment. No one claps. No one posts it online. But without that quiet planning, no voyage would survive. That still, private moment becomes the compass for everything that follows. So ask yourself, are you building your life, or just letting it happen? Are you navigating by design, or drifting without an anchor? Do you move because you've chosen to, or because the world has pulled you? Most men wake up and fall into the day, but only a few rise above it. They step forward with intention, taking hold of the hours before the hours take hold of them. They aren't driven by chaos. They move through it with clarity. What powers them is not adrenaline or applause, but the stillness they've built within. Stillness gives birth to power, quiet, calm, unshakable. This kind of power doesn't shout. It simply moves, steady and sure, until its presence can't be ignored. From that presence, a new life is built. One decision, one habit, one act of focused will at a time. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. The right moment begins when you decide to start. Sit with your vision, clarify your direction, strip away everything that doesn't serve your purpose, and in silence, begin laying bricks. Let others chase chaos. You build in stillness, in strength, in silence. That is where the life you deserve takes shape. It's time to turn inward. Focus on your path. Let silence become your strength. The less you say, the more you build. Stop chasing validation and start mastering yourself. When you move in silence, life begins to move around you. Embrace stillness and watch everything fall into place. Wishing you health, happiness, and fulfillment. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily.